Hello and welcome back to Deep Sleep Creeps YouTube channel. Today we're going to be listening to 3 more horror stories. If you enjoyed listening to it, please consider commenting and subscribing. So get comfortable and let's begin. My parents had left for a weekend getaway and left me home alone. I was enjoying the freedom, to say the least. As a 12-year-old boy, this felt awesome to me. It was a Friday night, and I had my sights set on intense gaming sessions of Fortnite. My room had its lights off, with the soft glow of the screen casting eerie shadows across the walls. As I battled my opponents, the world outside grew darker, and the house seemed to settle into an almost palpable silence. I was fully engrossed in the game when suddenly a series of knocks reverberated through the hallway and into my room. My heart skipped a beat, and I instinctively looked towards the front door. The knocks were deliberate, rhythmic, sending a shiver down my spine. Curiosity mixed with unease, and I reluctantly stood up, the headset hanging around my neck. Approaching the front door with caution, I peered through the peephole, only to be met with the sight of an empty porch. Confusion gnawed at me, but I chalked it up to my imagination playing tricks and returned to my game, attempting to shake off the unease that had settled in my stomach. Just as I was beginning to immerse myself back into the virtual world, a deafening crash shattered the silence, followed by the unmistakable sound of glass breaking. Panic surged through me, and adrenaline coursed through my veins as I sprang to my feet. Without a second thought, I snatched my phone off the desk and sprinted towards my bedroom door, very slowly closing and locking it so as to not make any noise. My trembling fingers dialed 911, my voice quivering as I explained the situation to the dispatcher. My heart hammered in my chest, drowning out the sound of my own voice as I described the frightening noises and the creeping sensation that someone might be inside the house. The dispatcher's reassurances were a lifeline, urging me to stay on the line and keep myself safe. My breaths were shallow and rapid as I scanned my surroundings for something, anything, that could serve as a makeshift weapon. Clutching a heavy trophy from my shelf, I went into my closet and shut the closet door with my back pressed against the wall, every nerve on edge. Time seemed to stretch, and I strained my ears for any sign of movement from below. Footsteps, faint but undeniable, echoed from the floor beneath me. Each step sent a shockwave of terror through my body, my breath catching in my throat. I held my breath, straining to hear, as the footsteps drew closer, a slow and methodical cadence that seemed to mock my fear. Minutes or hours passed, I couldn't be sure, as I remained huddled in my room, my eyes fixed on the door, my grip on the trophy unyielding. Eventually, the distant wail of sirens pierced the air, growing steadily louder until the house was awash in the flashing lights of police cars. Voices and heavy footsteps echoed through the house. Relief flooded over me as I realized that the police had arrived. Slowly, I got out of my hiding position, unlocked my bedroom door and cautiously descended the stairs, my legs feeling like jelly beneath me. In the living room, 2 officers assessed the situation, their stern expressions softening as they saw my shaken state. They assured me that the house was secure and began a thorough search for signs of an intruder. After their investigation, they determined that a tree branch had crashed through a window, triggering the terrifying chain of events. As the adrenaline subsided, a mix of embarrassment and relief washed over me. The officers were understanding and reassuring, emphasizing the importance of being cautious in such situations. I stayed the rest of the night at my grandparents' house until my parents came back. When my parents returned the next day, I recounted the night's ordeal, from the initial terror to the overwhelming relief when the police arrived. My parents were apologetic and felt bad that I had to go through this. Sometime next week, my parents put in a security system so it calls 911 for me anytime someone breaks in. I still believe to this day that there was someone in the house. I didn't make up hearing those footsteps because I know for a fact I heard them. But all in all, nothing eventful has happened like that again. I'd like to think in part it's because of our new security system. Now, when my parents are gone, I play games with my headphones off. Not a preferred experience, but anything to keep me feeling safe. The evening was calm and peaceful as I stepped into the cozy suburban house, ready for a babysitting gig. My friend, desperate for a night off, had asked me to watch over his two energetic kids while he and his wife attended an important event. With promises of a full fridge and access to his impressive game collection, I readily agreed. When my friend and his wife left, the kids were bursting with energy, chasing each other around the living room until finally their eyelids drooped and yawns escaped their tiny mouths. I herded them to bed, their sleepy protests gradually fading as I read them a bedtime story. Once the door closed behind me, I found myself alone in the quiet house, the soft glow of the television beckoning from the living room. I settled onto the couch, Nintendo DS in hand, ready to lose myself in the world of gaming. The rhythmic tapping of buttons provided a sense of comfort, and the game's vibrant colors danced before my eyes. Minutes turned into hours as I immersed myself in my virtual adventure, the rest of the world fading into the background. Suddenly, a shiver ran down my spine and I paused the game. The faint sound of footsteps echoed from somewhere within the house. Confusion clouded my thoughts. I just tucked the kids into bed, ensuring that they were both sound asleep. My initial assumption was that one of them had snuck out of bed and ventured to the basement, perhaps looking for a toy or a late-night snack. With a sigh, I set aside my DS and rose from the couch, determined to put a stop to their late-night escapade. The stairs creaked softly underfoot as I made my way to their rooms. Pushing open the door, I was met with the sight of two sleeping figures, their faces serene in the dim moonlight. I couldn't help but chuckle softly at the thought that my imagination had gotten the best of me. Yet, as I retraced my steps to the living room, a gnawing unease settled in my stomach. If the kids were fast asleep, then who, or what, had I heard? My heart quickened its pace, and I gripped my phone tightly, ready to dial 911 at a moment's notice. As if in response to my anxious thoughts, the sound of footsteps resumed, louder this time, echoing through the house like an ominous drumbeat. My breath caught in my throat, and I felt a bead of sweat trickle down my temple. With resolve, I made my way to the front door, my fingers trembling as I grasped the doorknob. Just as I was about to step outside and call the police, a gut feeling stopped me in my tracks. I couldn't leave without being certain that the kids were safe. I crept back upstairs, my heart pounding in my chest, and peeked into their rooms once more. The scene remained unchanged. Two peaceful sleepers, oblivious to the tension that gripped the house. Dread settling like a heavy fog, I dialed 911, my voice hushed as I explained the situation to the dispatcher. The seconds stretched into an eternity as I waited for the police to arrive, my ears strained for any further sounds from the basement. The wailing sirens were a welcome relief as they pierced the night air, their cacophony breaking the silence that had become almost unbearable. With a sense of both fear and anticipation, I guided the officers to the basement, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. What they uncovered sent chills down my spine. In a cramped, hidden corner of the basement, a makeshift living space had been carved out, a nest of blankets, discarded food wrappers and personal belongings. In a huddled, shadowy corner of the basement was a disheveled man, eyes wide with surprise and desperation. It turned out that an intruder had been living in the house's basement for some time, lurking just out of sight while I had been upstairs, oblivious to his presence. The revelation sent shockwaves through the quiet neighborhood, a stark reminder that danger could lurk where least expected. As the police took the man into custody, I met his eyes. The brown pupils filled with hatred caused me to panic, but I managed to get myself together. The parents were very grateful to me for saving their kids. They felt really bad I had to go through this. I'm just glad nothing happened to the kids, and that everyone was okay. I stopped babysitting after that because that night just scared me too much. I know that's a cowardly thing to say, but I just don't want to experience that again. It was a Friday afternoon when the school bell rang, signaling the end of the week, and my friend Jake and I excitedly planned a sleepover at my house. To put some things in perspective, we were in middle school at the time one of the scariest events in my life occurred. As we walked home from school, our backpacks heavy with books and papers, our laughter echoed through the air as we talked about ridiculous teachers and other students. As we walked down our usual path, I noticed a shadowy figure trailed at a cautious distance, blending into the surrounding trees. I caught a glimpse of the man from the corner of my eye and nudged Jake. "Do you see that guy?" I whispered, my heart starting to race. Jake squinted, his expression turning serious. "Yeah, let's lose him." We picked up our pace, weaving through the streets in an attempt to lose the stranger. Once we finally reached my house, we looked behind us and didn't see the creepy man, so we just brushed it off as an annoying encounter with some creep. The evening unfolded like any other sleepover. My single mum welcomed us with warm smiles and pizza. We all laughed and ate together as she asked how our school day was and if we had any plans for the weekend or if we had any homework. After we ate, my friend and I started playing Fortnite in my room. I had an extra PS4 console that I let my friend Jake play so we could do a duos match together as I used my gaming computer. Time flew. It was approaching 10 p.m. at night when my mum came upstairs to kiss me goodbye because she had a midwife emergency. With the house to ourselves, Jake and I eagerly launched into another intense gaming session. Time flew by, and we found ourselves in the top 5 of Battle Royale, deepening the thrill of the moment. Abruptly, the room plunged into darkness. The TV screen blinked out, and the room was filled with our startled shouts. "What's going on?" Jake's voice demanded, mirroring my own frustration. I fumbled for my phone, using its flashlight to pierce through the darkness. "Maybe it's just a power outage," I suggested, trying to sound brave despite the unsettling circumstances. But a sinking feeling gnawed at my gut as a chilling realization washed over us. The man, the one we thought we'd left behind, had followed us home. He had been lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment. I wanted to seem brave, so I used my phone's flashlight to go downstairs, and before I made it all the way down, I began to hear knocking at the door. Suddenly, a big knot appeared in my stomach as I was so nervous I wanted to throw up. I looked outside the peephole and it was the same man that followed us home. "Found you," he said in the most creepy voice I've ever heard, his malevolent grin illuminated by the pale moonlight filtering through the window. Adrenaline surged through our veins, pushing us into action. I checked for what seemed like the 10th time that the door was locked. I asked my friend to help me check all the windows and back door to make sure it was locked. We scrambled to our feet and raced toward each entry point of the house, checking. My fingers trembled as I dialed 911, my voice shaky as I explained the terrifying situation. The operator's reassuring voice on the other end gave us a glimmer of hope. Help was on the way. We huddled together, straining our ears to catch any sound from outside. Footsteps echoed around the house, along with the crushing of the leaves. Our breath hitched, and my grip on the phone tightened. Just as panic threatened to consume us, we heard police sirens. We then heard running around the house along with a police dog barking. In an intense struggle, the man was apprehended, his sinister intentions halted by the capture and arrest from the police officers. A mix of relief and gratitude washed over us as the officers ensured our safety, searching every corner of the house to verify our security. It was found that the power had been cut from the breaker outside, which caused the power outage. As the adrenaline subsided, a wave of exhaustion washed over us. My mum finally arrived, tears of relief streaming down her face as she enveloped us in tight embraces. Life slowly returned to normal, but the memory of that night lingered.